When I was maybe 12, I met Harvey Pekar, and he had never done any comics. He was just somebody that lived in the neighborhood. And I rang his doorbell because his newspaper boy told me that he had comics. And we felt at that time that anybody that had comics, we should be able to have some friendship with. 1970 was my first comic convention. I went to one in Detroit, Michigan, and then I started going to the ones in New York. And they were very small, and so you could meet the creators and talk to them. I met Will Eisner. I interviewed many of them for a fanzine I was doing with my friend, Seth Tabachman. And we interviewed Robert Crumb and William Gaines from Mad Magazine and Neil Adams. And I was interested in superheroes at the time, but I was slowly, as I was getting older, I got very interested in underground comics. I moved to New York for a possible job in animation. Somebody offered me a job there. And when I arrived, they didn't remember who I was, but I was in New York, so I was like, well, I might as well try. And one of my first jobs was as an inker on Richie Rich for Harvey Comics. Right around the same time, I bumped into an artist that I had met when he was just starting out, named Howard Chaykin, who did American Flag later. And he asked me if I wanted a job as an assistant. And it was in a studio with Walt Simonson and Jim Starlin and Chaykin and a few other people. And shortly after, Frank Miller was in the studio. And Frank Miller was just starting in comics. So it was kind of an exciting time period. And I started going to art school, to Pratt Institute. And I was not doing mainstream comics. I was doing much more alternative, was what was interesting to me, even though I was working for a mainstream artist. It was very difficult to get anything published because the underground comics had pretty much disappeared. And because the mode of distribution, they closed. So I was self-publishing, and for places like Fantagraphics that had very little money to do it. But then it started to open up where I was doing, the places that I did illustration work were starting to use comics as well, because there were the whole group of art directors who had grown up on underground comics and alternative comics who were in a position to hire people like me. And so doing comics turned out to be a really smart move, even though it wasn't obvious at all. And I started getting some incredible jobs. We got into a war in Iraq in 1991, our first war in Iraq. And I just felt too upset about what was happening to not have all of my work talk about political subject matter. And so I started to focus that more. At first, when I did that, I lost a lot of work. But then when art directors started realizing that that was the kind of work I was only doing, then I started getting more work, and then I got work from Time and Newsweek and all of the mainstream, more political publications. My career has been a process of tremendous luck, and very often I just make it in, but the door shuts right as I'm coming or going.